Um, okay. So this one I don't do super often. This isn't a full daydreaming. It's more of a catnap, if you will. I've done a couple of these in the past, or maybe one. I don't know. Anyway, I was watching a video and somebody was making a point about like video game storylines about how they tend to lean, especially in open worlds, the more the super libertarian route or kind of the fascist route, where the main character is all about joining the chaotic anarchists that have the good intentions but don't have the best execution, and the downright fascists that are trying to maintain a certain status quo in order to keep an iron grip over the people. And there was a storyline that I was kind of writing a while back, but I couldn't. It was hard for me to figure out where I really wanted to go with it. Basically, the idea being the main character or the main villain, sorry, of the story was trying to maintain the status quo, and he would end up being the main character of the overall narrative, but even if he wasn't the main of the first part. And having I the reason why I didn't go too far with this one is because rooting for the villain like this is tough, and if it isn't executed well, I can see it flopping pretty easily. One of the big problems being is, we're kind of conditioned to supporting the guy that goes in, shakes up the status quo, gets the girl, saves the day, and fixes all the problems. But he pointed out, he was like, well, how do you meet in the middle of these two? Because obviously the most nuanced route would be the middle ground. And I think a good story shouldn't have to meet in halfway. The reason I say that is because, we live in a world where plenty of people see the good guy end up on the fascist route, or see the radical rebellions and the guys that are trying to break away from it all fail. And I think that showing that dilemma is way more interesting than just saying the good guy is going to break through this, because the good guy just doesn't always break through it. I find that sort of thing fascinating. I just couldn't make a person likable enough at that stage that I was at in my writing. Like my story building just wasn't strong enough to build a long enough hook. And I had started from the end with this one because I wanted a big surprise twist where the villain takes out the heroes in this massive turnaround. And if I were to redo this again, if I were to attack it a little bit differently, I'd probably do kind of what Infinity War did, and that is making the villain the main character. This way, you get to see more of why they want to maintain the status quo, or at least you get to build a stronger connection. Because I guess you really don't. You only see a little bit of why he wants to maintain or do what he's to follow his goal and logic of why the villain does the villain thing. But I think not making it so good versus evil, um, and definitely making it so you don't go with the route where where the main villain could use their abilities slightly differently, and every problem that the heroes don't care for would be solved because he just double the resources and problem solved. Einstein. Yeah, no, I would go more the go with a war. I think a war is probably the best route. Um, and show what the rebellion's actually doing. So one of the things that I'm doing with a newer piece is showing how the radical rebellionists do cause a lot of damage in their wake, and having the people slowly lose the will to fight. that paints a better picture of why a rebellion would fall. Because even if their goal is to save everyone at the end of the day, if you live in a small town and your small town is a home base for the rebels, and over the course of this war, let's say it's 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, 20 years, you see your friends fall, your families fall, your coworkers, your loved ones. You slowly, it doesn't matter if the rebels win at the end, because by that point you would have lost so much. And if you magnify this to where the entire area is being affected by this war, it really doesn't matter. They will stop caring if they win at this point. At some point, they won't care who the winner is, because they just want it all to stop. And even if you do win, there is not a happily ever after where it's just like, oh well, we won, the bad guys are dead, so now we have a perfect 10-year game plan in place, and they might not. And then when the war goes on long enough and the people question, hey, so what is the game plan? How are we going to secure the resources to rebuild everything? Like, if we're attacking ourselves, we're also destroying our own resources. So, you know, then what? And when you show the chain of command with a singular goal of just beat the bad guy, instead of, all right, once the bad guy's beaten, then this person's going to take control, and then we're going to secure resources from this guy, and or we're going to make sure we have trade established with this guy. If there's no sort of, political insight of why or where things go next after the battle, after the big glorious moment of hero versus villain, you have, that's where your true plot comes in. The battle will be fun. The battle will be great. It'll be explosive. It'll be dangerous. It'll be filled with these twists and turns, a little bit of espionage, really show how in show the real ingenuity of the characters involved. But the literal millisecond that battle ends, that's when the hard part kicks in. And will the people that have been supporting the rebels this entire time be on board anymore? Will they turn? Will the war end, and will this newfound nation crumble under its own weight, because there's literally no foundation to support this new building? And I think that is probably the better way to go about the whole good versus evil, the libertarian versus fascist gameplay storyline that they've got going on, instead of focusing solely on the good versus evil battle portion. Focus on what comes next. I think there's a movie with Timberlake in it, talking about like some love movie. I can't remember, it was a chick flick. I didn't fucking watch it. My mom was watching the shit. And it was talking about how, like, all right, so what happens after the happily ever after moment when the two characters get together? Oh yeah, then they gotta figure out, how the fuck they want to stay there. Same principle, just figure out why they want to stay there. And that's a catnap. Oh shit! I forgot to do all the things. Drink, put down your phones, like, subscribe. Honestly, man, I'll see you again.